Hello everyone, my name is Robert Jukes and I'm the owner of MasterTech Automotive in Abbotsford, British Columbia. What I want to go over for you today is a question I get asked a lot as a shop owner and as an instructor. The question is, why should I? Why should I take my car into a certified shop and have it inspected when a Quick Lube does an inspection on it every time I run through and they do it in only 15 minutes? Why should I take it to you when your shop takes 45 minutes to an hour? Why should I have my brakes checked when they work just fine? Why should I have my steering checked when my car steers just fine? Why should I have a full inspection on my car when everything seems to be in order? I'm going to go over these things for you and explain why you should, and furthermore, how it's going to save you money. One of the first things we check when we lift up your vehicle and start inspecting it on the hoist is your brake system. What we'll do is we'll take off your tires and we'll start inspecting it. Here's a good example of something you would not see unless we pull the tires. As you can see, this rotor has a great deal of rust on it and it is operating at maybe 50% efficiency. Now I think that is something you may want to know about. We also will pull your rear drums and inspect it for dust buildup. Dust buildup is a byproduct of the friction inside the brake, and it's a breakdown of the linings, a little bit of metal, and then some dirt. We will inspect your linings and make sure that they are not worn out. We'll check the springs, and we will clean it and service it and adjust it if necessary on a brake service. Here's a good example of a set of brake shoes. On the right hand side you see a brand new shoe, and on the left hand side you can see a brake shoe that is worn down to the rivets. Now this is something as a customer you will never be able to tell by just driving it. The brake effectiveness should be close to the same. However, you're very close to causing major damage to your brake system. We will also check your oils. We'll take a look at them for how dirty they are, whether they need to be serviced, the color, the smell. There's many things that's going to tell us the difference. Typically what we'll do is we'll take a little bit out, we'll dip it onto our skin and then take a look at it and see what it looks like and compare it against a known good oil that we know by experience is good or bad. Here's an example of transmission fluid. On the right is fresh fluid. On the left is burnt fluid. The reason it is a bright red color is as soon as it gets hot, it turns the dark brown color, and then the vehicle is in great need of being serviced. Another thing we're going to look at on your vehicle is going to be your tires. How good are they? Are they on the wear bars? Are they wearing unevenly? What is the oil air pressure in them? We're going to report back to you and let you know what we find. Here is an example of a tire that is worn to the wear bars. As you can see on the edge of the tire, you can see a connection between the pads. That is the wear bar, and that is indicating that this tire is worn down and needs replacement. As you can see, there still is some tread there, and the idea of a wear bar is that you still have some siping on the tires to allow the tire to contact the road when it is raining, so you are not on an absolutely bald tire and therefore hydroplaning with very little water. It gives you a chance to get new tires on. What we also check for you is your brake fluid. This is one of the things that you need to be really careful of at a lot of shops. What happens is they'll just dip their finger in, they'll show it to you and say, look how dirty it is, you need to change it. Well, the truth is with brake fluid, you need to check it with a electronic tester that measures the water content of the brake fluid. As you can see, this one, A red light is on, indicating that it is failing for high water content. This vehicle needs to have the brake fluid flushed completely. What we do is we will evacuate all of the brake fluid out of the master cylinder, replace it with fresh brake fluid, and then we will flush the whole brake system completely so you have fresh brake fluid throughout the whole system. Here's an example of a transmission pan. As you can see, there is a bloom around the magnet of metal. It almost looks like a flower in the bottom of the pan, although trust me, it is not a beautiful sight to a customer. It may be a beautiful sight to a transmission shop, but I can guarantee you, you're not going to want to see this in your car. One of the things that prevents this from happening is servicing your transmission fluid properly. Now, there's a great deal of people out there in the lube shops that are recommending transmission flushes, and they never change the transmission filter. The proper way to service your transmission is to drop the pan, put in a new filter, and refill it with fresh transmission fluid. That way, the detergents in the new transmission fluid help clean out the inside of your transmission and pick up any dirt and contaminants in there, and then it is then filtered out by the new filter. Here's an example of what can happen when your engine goes sideways on you. As you can see, there's shrapnel in the bottom of this pan and varying components. There's bits of bearing material, some bolts from the internal part of the engine, and you can see actually where the pan has been broken through. This happens when a hard part fails inside the engine. One of the main things that causes this is a lack of service. On today's vehicles, one of the most crucial things that people seem to forget is to get your oil changed on the proper intervals. The bulk of 4-cylinder engines and 6-cylinder engines in today's cars are controlled by variable camshaft timing. Now, camshaft timing is an incredible thing. It helps you have a very efficient engine and get great performance. However, if you don't have the proper oil in it, or the oil is getting old and sludgy, or your oil level is getting low, your engine is not going to run correctly. It will start to misfire, it will lose power, it'll start rattling, and eventually you're going to see shrapnel in the bottom of your oil pan. A few other things we check for you is we check your cooling system. On the upper left here, you can see a good example of a very dirty cooling system. Somebody has tried to repair a leak by putting stop leak in their cooling system. This is never a good idea. As you can see inside the opening of the radiator, that the stop leak has caked itself all over the inside part of the radiator. What happens with this is that the radiator can no longer transfer heat as efficiently to the air, cooling your engine the way it needs to. If you have a leak in your cooling system, have it looked at by a qualified professional. The other picture on this slide is a picture of a dirty and corroded battery clamp. What this can cause you is hard starting, long cranks, and no starts. Now, we all know that when we walk out to our vehicle in the dark after having a nice meal out and we're all dressed up, the last thing we want is our vehicle not to start. We check this for you and make sure that your car will always be in tip-top performance. When we check your coolant for you, what we do is we don't use our finger or guess. We use an actual chemical strip, and depending on the color it changes, we know how acidic the coolant has become and how strong the glycol level is. In other words, how resistant it is to freezing and how resistant it is to corroding the inside of your engine. The more acidic your coolant is, the more it's going to eat away at the inside of your engine. I hope that these things that I've told you today can help you in the servicing of your car. The one thing I always say to customers is proper servicing is never an unnecessary expense. When I was a kid, an advertisement that caught my eye before I became a mechanic was very telling. It was an old Frown commercial, and he had a mechanic standing there holding an oil filter saying, "You can pay me now, or you can pay me later." And I guarantee you, if you pay me now, it's going to be a lot cheaper than if you have to pay me later. I hope you have a good day.